Hey, my name is Robert, and welcome back to episode 9 of Fight Pics. Today I will be covering Chisora versus Deontay Wilder. So everyone knows this is going to be a good fight. You look at both of the fighters, you look at their fight styles, you know they both stand there and bang. And especially looking at their knockout ratios, a guy like Wilder, 43 knockouts and 44 wins, you can't ignore that when looking at this fight. And Chisora, it's just him, his whole bob and weave style is going to give a good fight, and I'm going to break it down. I'm going to start off with Chisora. I'm going to go over his fight style, his habits, and a lot of the things he does wrong, and it's most likely due to his age. I'll go over that soon. Right off the bat, I want to mention the age factor here. Chisora is 42 years old. A lot of the issues with him are likely due to his age, but for a little bit, I'm going to look past that and just analyze him as a fighter. Chisora is a 6'1" pressure fighter who explodes with combinations and single shots. He fights primarily as an orthodox fighter, but every now and then will switch stance when he enters range with his combinations. Chisora's favorite combination is the hooks to the body and then the hooks up top. It's kind of a wild combination. Chisora is very plotty, but he makes up with it with his good combinations. He actually does a great job of landing shots on his opponents despite having questionable footwork. Chisora's overhand right is a very powerful punch he throws, and this is simply because he winds it up from his waist. Usually you are taught not to do this, but it works for Chisora because most of the fighters he fights are usually taller than him to an extreme extent. Look at Tyson Fury, 6'9", I believe. And in this fight, Deontay Wilder is going to be 6'7". Chisora's defense isn't actually too bad. He anticipates a lot of punches as he doesn't really react to them in real time. He rolls under punches a lot, and he also likes to slip shots as well. He also likes to utilize his rolls and slips to counter his opponents. Because he ducks so often though, he can be timed with an uppercut. Chisora can be very patient with his counters. If he has you pinned on the ropes where he wants you, he will actually wait for you to open up before unleashing a combination or unleashing a single shot. He did this many times in his recent fights, most notably against Otto Wallin and Joe Joyce. However, there are many times and many instances where Chisora will just let it all hang in the ring without regard for his defense. This dude will literally just swing from his hips like it's a bar fight, and I can't lie, it's pretty funny, and it makes for very entertaining fights. Even though he is throwing these hooks with all his strength, he is noticeably slow. This is likely due to his age, but it's a big issue that I've noticed. Against a gritty fighter who has the ability to counter, these combinations won't work as well. However, against a fighter who stands in the pocket and does not move their head, these combinations are gonna do some damage. When Chisora has his opponents on the ropes, he loves to go to those hook combinations that I mentioned earlier. He throws these shots from his waist, and he doesn't really move his head at all when unloading these combinations. And because he doesn't move his head, it leaves him wide open for counters. Luckily for him, nobody has been able to take advantage of it recently, because if you look at his last 3 opponents, Joe Joyce, that dude, he's slower than a freaking, I don't even know. I can't even say how slow he is. Otto Wallin, not a big puncher. And then Gerald Washington, he was like a year younger than Chisora, who's at the time I think was 38. So not necessarily a fast fighter who can take advantage of those counters. The dude hit hard, but he couldn't take advantage of it. But against fast fighters, he's got to be careful. Chisora struggles with bigger fighters who pressure him. I've noticed that he tends to slow down regardless in a fight, especially because he's going 12 rounds. It hasn't really helped him at all, especially because of his age. But against fighters who use their weight against him, Chisora does slow down pretty significantly. And he's able to fight through it, but his durability is lowered when he's gassed out. And that leads me to my next point. At this point in his career, Chisora has taken a lot of damage. Recently, he has shown that he can fade in a fight and doesn't nearly have the same durability that he did in the past. Joe Joyce rocked him badly in their fight, but Joe Joyce doesn't fight anything like Deontay Wilder. Joe Joyce is a very slow, sluggish fighter, kind of similar to Chisora, but much bigger, and Joe Joyce doesn't move his head at all. I don't know what's up with that. Deontay Wilder, though, I'll talk about that right now. Let's go over Deontay Wilder's fight style. So now I'm going to be covering Deontay Wilder's fight style, his issues that he might have in his game, which I'm sure most people know about, but I'm going to cover them just in case you don't. So, Deontay Wilder is 6'6", and he is also a pressure fighter, but he fights in a different way than Chisora. He fights much taller than Chisora, and of course it's because of his height, but it's also because of his defense. Wilder doesn't typically move his upper body, which makes him a taller presence in the ring. He has a wide stance and strictly fights in orthodox in order to always have the ability to land his right hand. I mean, as everyone knows, Deontay Wilder has a deadly right hand. He has built a whole entire career off of that one right hand and has shown to have otherworldly power in that shot. Wilder likes to use his jab in order to set up his right hand. He will measure or paw with his left hand in order to find that right hand. Despite being 40 years old, Wilder still does have the ability to wing his right hand with utmost power as he did in the past. Wilder's defense is not his best attribute. He often walks forward with a weak guard and seems to prioritize subtle head movement in order to evade punches. Besides this, most of the time his chin is up in the air to be hit. In his fight with Herndon, Wilder was actually very patient, but in a good way, unlike his previous fights. He utilized his jab pretty well in this fight in order to establish and keep the range before the right hand came, which led to the stoppage. In the past though, Wilder has been much less active in fights than he typically is, which has led to some lackluster performances and some bad losses. These losses come from him being down in the cards or falling into his opponent's traps. Zhilei Zhang knocked out Wilder after a relatively lackluster performance by Wilder. Zhang timed the telegraphed right hand of Wilder with a right hook of his own and managed to follow up with another right hook, which put Wilder completely out. When Wilder senses blood, he actually loses the little fundamentals he possesses. He will overthrow his punches and leave himself wide open for counters, along with having poor punch selection to begin with. If he had better shot selection in these exchanges, he would be much more dangerous as a finisher. Now let me talk about his technical flaws more in depth. Wilder has a big issue with loading up on his punches. It has been something he's done throughout his whole career. He cocks that right hand back and it is very readable. As I mentioned earlier, Zhilei Zhang saw Deontay Wilder wind up his right hand. He countered him perfectly with that right hook, which put Wilder completely out on his feet. Wilder is also very prone to being outboxed. This is also due to his poor boxing fundamentals. When he steps in there with someone who has good footwork and can string combinations together, he struggles. Tyson Fury and Joseph Parker are the best example of this. You can even throw in Luis Ortiz as an example. Luckily for Wilder though, Derek Chisora is not a boxer like any of these people. Okay, now that I covered their fight styles, I'm going to go over the fight specifics and my predictions as well. This fight is competitive simply because of the fight styles. Both guys are pressure fighters and both guys are out of their prime. Despite being 2 years older, at 42 years old, Derek Chisora has had a better resume recently and has actually gotten some wins against good names, and he's on a 3-fight win streak. Wilder recently had a comeback win against someone who probably shouldn't have been in there with him, but before that he was fighting quality opponents, even if they were losses. Both men in their recent fights have looked like shades of their former selves. Chisora looks very slow and sluggish in the ring, but he has maintained his grit and power. Wilder, on the other hand, hasn't found success like he used to have at all recently. He still has that one punch KO power and will always have that one punch KO power, but he doesn't seem to have the same ability to land it like he did in his prime. Both of their durabilities are questionable in this fight as well. That's also what makes this fight very interesting though. Chisora definitely seems like he has taken more damage throughout his career so far, but he also has displayed better ability to recover than Wilder. Chisora has found a lot of success with the overhand right counter when he is against the ropes. Recently, it has led to 2 knockdowns in his fights, one against Joe Joyce and one against Otto Wallin. If Wilder is pressuring Chisora against the ropes, I feel like he's going to walk right into that overhand right counter of Chisora, and this is because of his lack of footwork and head movement. In the past, Chisora has shown his vulnerabilities to uppercuts. Because of the way he rolls and ducks under punches, you could time his head movement with nasty uppercut counters. Joseph Parker dropped him 3 times with uppercuts. Joseph Parker dropped him 3 times with an uppercut counter. 3 times in the same fight. Kubrat Pulev rocked him with an uppercut, and Tyson Fury also found a lot of success with the uppercut in his fight. Though against a fight against Wilder, I really don't think this is going to be too much of an issue for Chisora. Wilder simply doesn't possess a solid uppercut in his arsenal. I saw him try to attempt one in his last fight, and it looked very labored and wild, so I don't think it's going to be a factor in this fight at all. This fight is interesting because I feel like Wilder might take a more subdued and patient approach, similar to his last fight against Herndon. I don't know how to pronounce that guy's last name. We can't forget Chisora's last fight though. He fought a boxer in Otto Wallin and totally outgrit him and outpoint him as well. That is a dude who has built his boxing career off of his boxing ability. I don't think Deontay Wilder is going to develop better boxing skills than Otto Wallin in his 40s. Wilder needs to step on the gas at some point in this fight. He can't be too patient because he can risk getting caught at some point, like in his fight against Zhilei Zhang. I do feel like he will take this patient approach, which will lead to Chisora connecting at some point with an arching hook of some sort. I'm looking at that overhand right of Chisora. I think as Wilder finally commits to a punch, Chisora will duck and roll like he usually does, and will loop that shot, the overhand right up top, and it will connect flush. That, or Chisora will just find the shot through his offense early in the fight. Even though Chisora is much slower than he used to be, when he counters with a single overhand right, he can put some speed on that thing. Out of these two options, I do feel like Wilder is more likely to run into a punch than just getting caught early. If Wilder does run into a punch, he will find himself hurt against a guy who does not lay off against opponents when he smells blood. Wilder can catch Chisora and put him out, but we haven't seen that same spark recently in his fights. Chisora is up there in age, but he is still very dangerous and, most importantly, gritty and there to win. My prediction is Derek Chisora by a round 6 knockout. After a patient first 5 rounds from Deontay Wilder, the 6th round will come and Wilder will start to pick up the pace, and Chisora will make him pay with an overhand right counter as Deontay Wilder is walking in. And we know Deontay Wilder already likes to keep his hands in a non-defensively sound spot, and I think that will really be devastating for Deontay Wilder if he gets hit with the overhand right counter that I was talking about. Well, this is going to be a good fight regardless. It's going to be crazy, but I do feel like Deontay Wilder's lack of spark recently has led me to have trouble picking him. We know he can hit hard. We know he can knock everyone out with one punch. But if he can't land that shot, if he can't string his punches together to find it, and he hasn't been able to do that at all recently, I can't pick him to beat a guy who has shown that he could still hang in there. Even if he struggles, he could still hang in there with above average level heavyweights, kind of like a Joe Joyce or Otto Wallin. I think we've seen Chisora fight at a higher level recently, and Wilder really hasn't looked good in any of his fights recently, so it's hard to pick him based off of that. Thank you for watching. Let me know who y'all got in the comments. I think this is going to be a good fight regardless, but hopefully it doesn't end up being a stinker. Sometimes these kind of like fights that seem like it's going to be good regardless of how it goes, they sometimes end up somehow becoming a stinker. Hopefully that does not happen. But thank you for watching once again. Let me know who you got, and see you guys next time.